Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk product. This is your friend Yusuf, who is an engineer by educational qualification and a product manager by profession. This is the second video in the series of thinking via first principle versus analogy. I'm pretty sure you guys would have gone through the first video in this series where I essentially do a comparative analysis between these two models, these two modes of thinking. In this video, I'll dedicatedly talk towards the first principle approach. The idea will again not be to throw n number of ways of doing this or to throw flowcharts on the screen. There are many available on the internet. It's just a matter of hitting a few keys. The idea would be to be very simple and precise and then transform these principles into everyday functioning of a product manager. The my my only intent is to attract more and more people towards this domain. So I'll begin with first principle thinking, and I'll be talking only about first principle thinking in this video. So as I talked in the previous sessions, that it's although you everyone has a different approach towards problem solving, and you cannot mend or mold someone's thought process. But if you're a product manager, it is very important for you to give structure to your thinking, right? You might have a different way of thinking, but there needs to be a structure in how you approach problem solving. And that's exactly what the first principle does. It expects you to break down the problem into facts or axioms, I would say. And what are these? These are the statements that cannot be further broken down. For example, man is mortal. You don't need a debate on that, right? You can build complex, complicated policies, or you can plan your towns, cities, and countries, or a social security plan around this, right? You do not need more debate on that. So this is exactly what I mean by breaking down the problem into smallest fragments which cannot be broken down further. We'll cite multiple examples to help everyone understand this better, right? And for product managers, it is very important, right? So in one of my previous examples, I'll cite how I have been thinking via first principle and how has it helped me. So in one of my previous organizations, I was in the core payments product team. I've talked about this in my previous video as well. I was tasked with bringing a million or so small and medium enterprises under former payments process. They still prefer cash, right? And I was tasked to create a payments experience, a payments journey, or a payment gateway to bring these kirana stores or your everyday mom and pop shops under formal payment processes. Now I had two options, right? I had the independence to think how I want to approach the problem, right? I had two ways. Either I could have talked about creating a payments experience that offers a very high level of personalization. If you're merchant A, I'll give you a curated list. If you're merchant B, I'll give you another thing where you can reorder the payment method. You can have a QR code flashing on the website, flashing on your app, and blah blah blah. I could have gone and gone and gone, but this is not thinking via first principle. Why? Because thinking via first principle is to break down the problem statement into the smallest fragment. And what's that in this case? It is actually to understand why there are millions of small and medium enterprises who do not impose their trust on the digital payments, right? The first problem that I have to solve is not that they are not able to capture OTPs. It's not that they want to see credit card as the first option of payment and then UPI. Neither it is the unavailability of a QR code on their website. It is simply because they don't understand what a payments integration is. Because they're more comfortable in getting cash in hand. It's my responsibility to make them understand, to make them comfortable that the money that they receive digitally is as safe or perhaps safer and more secure in their bank account, right? So this is thinking via first principle. And the problem with this approach is a lot of product managers have this know it all attitude. You might have heard of Jeff Bezos, that he frequently, that I think weekly or bi-weekly, he takes customer calls directly, right? So someone would dial up to Amazon about complaining about the delivery or the broken or wrong product, and it would be actually Jeff Bezos who would greet the customer on the other side. Why do you think so? This is not merely a publicity stunt, right? People like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, the real life Tony Stark, they operate by a first principle. Jeff Bezos could have very easily had the attitude of know it all, right? But still, he preferred to break down the actual problem via first principle. That is to actually understand the raw, the crude problem that the customers are facing. And this is how people like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Mark Zuckerberg, they are who they are, right? So I carried out a very interesting experiment. This video took quite some time to make. I was expecting uh, videos in quick succession, but it took me a couple of days. I carried out a small experiment where I created a wireframe of a muddled app. It was not very elegantly designed, but it was just a wireframe, and I shared it with two different people. One of the guy, he was very enthusiastic, very energetic, and wanted to make into product management. He has been reading and studying all along, right? So I just handed over the wireframe. It has got nothing to do whether it's a food delivery app or it's a cab aggregator app, or it's something. It's just a basic wireframe with components, and I asked him to help me improve on the idea. He came back with few suggestions like, hey Yusuf, why there's no social sign in? People want to sign in using their Gmail and Facebook linked accounts. Then the other feedback that I received was that why there's no gamification? You should understand that this is something that increases retention. It gives people motive to come back again and to complete whatever task you want to assign to them. The third idea was, you should access device contacts, because this actually helps the platform to grow. At a later point in time, you can incentivize uh, the users of the app to share your app in the contact, so that they can build a network there. One of the feedbacks that I got was that how are you going to measure NPS or the customer satisfaction, CSAT? Because I don't see a feedback section. So, these were the feedback that I received from that young and energetic fellow, and all of them made sense, right? All of them made sense. They were very crucial in scaling the app. And then I took the same wireframe. I gave it to a seasoned product manager. She's also one of my friends, and she has around 5 to 6 years of experience in building 0 to 1 product in one of the B2C companies that handles around 15 to 20 million daily active users. I said, hey, help me out sorting the uh, user experience for this app. What's wrong that am I doing? She had a very simple question. She said, Yusuf, who will be the users of your app? Whom are you designing this app for? And this is exactly what thinking via first principle is. If you're designing this app for senior citizens, they don't give a damn about social sign in. They'll never log into your app using their Gmail account. They don't understand it. They are more comfortable in punching the 10-digit mobile number and getting OTP verified. They don't care about gamification, right? So, if you're building something, if you're doing it through first principle, the basics of which is to understand whom you are designing it for. And that is exactly how thinking via first principle for product managers work. You should question the status quo. For whom am I designing this app? There cannot be a question that can be broken down into simpler terms. These are the simplest terms when you're building something from 0 to 1. Whom am I creating this for? Why am I creating this? What impact is it going to have? Right? So these are the fundamental questions you should understand. If you are building something for a millennial, right, who lives in, let's say, a tier 1 or a tier 2 city, you have to worry for a completely different set of problems than if you are trying to build something which is restricted to a locality or a hyper local concept. Both of them very differently, right? So in product domain, either you can be a product manager like Sundar Pichai, right? Or you can be a generic product guy who doesn't care about innovating. You can actually pick multiple ideas from multiple places that are already existing. You can patch them up, you can stitch them up, and you will be able to sail through the problem. But this approach, that is called thinking via analogy, if you go via this approach, you'll be able to sail through, but you'll never be able to make an impact because your thinking will always be constrained depending upon what others have already achieved. You will channelize your process, you will channelize your thought process, and whenever an open ended question comes to you, for example, reiterating, hey Yusuf, we need to build something for those people who don't understand payments, you'll go for a toss. Why? Because if you do not think by a first principle, right, your thinking process will start by listing the problems instead of listing the opportunities. If you don't think via first principle, the first few thoughts that will come ki, hey, it's already 2022, and if no one has been able to make them adopt payment, how do you think I'll be able to do that? Right? What's different with me? Company A couldn't do that, B couldn't do that, C tried but failed. So what do you think is going to create a difference? But if you think by a first principle, you'll actually go down to the root cause of the problem. As in, it's 2022. And why we have a section of people who still do not trust digital payment? So the actual solution is not to come up with another payments company. The actual solution is not to build another payment gateway. The actual solution is not to marry multiple solutions together and come up with a hybrid chaos. The actual solution is to try to understand what exactly the underlying issue is. And if you fix that problem for once, right, you'll be able to build an empire over that. And this is exactly what thinking via first principle is. I hope I made sense. The comment section is open for you to share the feedback. I'll soon come up with a couple of other videos on first principle, right? And then I'll move towards thinking via analogy. I hope it was an interesting conversation. Thanks for being a patient audience. I'll be back soon. Thank you.